Pfizer have just released a 55,000-page document about vaccines and their efficiency, even though the Food and Drug Administration wanted to delay the release by 75 years, basically, after everyone alive now is dead. So we're asking, why is it so difficult to talk openly about vaccines? Hello there, you 5.3 million awakening wonders. There's a light within you and it's getting brighter. I know how challenging it is to be alive. I know what you face. I know what you have to get through. We're all on our individual journeys, but here we can coalesce and come together, communicate openly and ask the difficult questions. Have the difficult conversations. Today's conversation being, of course, why did the Food and Drug Administration want to delay information about vaccine efficiency by 75 years? Why is that in a climate where many people are skeptical and doubtful? One environment where people are neither skeptical or doubtful is at my live shows. You can come and see me if you're in the UK, or if you want to travel here, you can do that now. You can come see me in a couple of weeks in Carlisle. You can see me in Newcastle, Stockton-on-Tees, Glasgow, Plymouth, Bristol, all over this beautiful country in fantastic places. See me live. More than just stand-up comedy, an opportunity to ask me questions and meditate. If you want to do things like that, that's literally up to you, as are all things, apparently, other than openly discussing vaccines. Now, as I always have to say to you on our current beloved platform, we have to be careful about what we say. I'm not offering you medical advice. I'm not making any suggestions to you as to what you should do for your health, for your family's health. What I'm doing here is looking at a very interesting story. The story being that the Food and Drug Administration wanted to delay the release of documents pertaining to the efficacy of vaccines and information around their trials, side effects, for 75 years. But Pfizer have released a 55,000-word document due to a judge saying that they had to release it. So that's good. Once in a while, there are positive things that come out of these stories. You think, well, that's good. There's a democratic check and balance in place there that's led to some transparency. But is it total transparency? And what's the resistance? Let's get into the story. In a 55,000-page set of documents released in the last few weeks, the US Food and Drug Administration Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, CBER, is for the first time allowing the public to access data Pfizer submitted to the FDA from its clinical trials in support of a COVID-19 vaccine license. This follows US District Judge Mark T. Pittman's decision on January the 6th to deny the request from the FDA to suppress the data for the next 75 years, which the agency claimed was necessary in part because of its limited resources. We've got so few resources in the pharmaceutical industry. It's been a tough couple of years. Tightening the belts, we've barely scraped together a few pennies. What with conditions, we've all been hit quite hard by the pandemic over here in the pharmaceutical industry. Would you give us a bit of time to get ourselves together? Sure. How long? Well, just, I don't know, 2-3 generations so that everyone alive now would be dead. What that in itself suggests is that there's something to hide. I'm not saying that there's something to hide. I'm saying a request to delay the release of information by 75 years doesn't feel like transparency. And querying that doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist. That makes you someone who makes rational evaluations based on data. This is from those conspiracy theorist wacko cowboy loonies. Oh, the British Medical Journal. Hey, what should we put in today? Let's put in the lollipops are magic. Let's put in the unicorns are real. In the pages of the British Medical Journal, God bless you, Your Majesty, a decade ago, in the middle of a different pandemic, it came to light that governments around the world had spent billions stockpiling antivirals for influenza that had not been shown to reduce the risk of complications, hospital admissions or death. The majority of trials that underpinned regulatory approval and government stockpiling of oseltamivir, better known as Tamiflu, was sponsored by the manufacturer. Most were unpublished. Those that were published were ghostwritten by writers paid by the manufacturer. The people listed as principal authors lacked access to the raw data, and academics who requested access to the data for independent analysis were denied. Complicated case, Watson. The Tamiflu saga heralded a decade of unprecedented attention to the importance of sharing clinical trial data. Public battles for drug company data, transparency campaigns with thousands of signatures, strengthened journal data sharing requirements, explicit commitments from companies to share data, new data access website portals, and landmark transparency policies from medicines regulators all promised a new era in data transparency. Progress was made, but clearly not enough. The errors of the last pandemic are being repeated. Memories are short. Today, despite the global rollout of COVID-19 vaccines and treatments, the anonymised participant-level data underlying the trials for these new products remain inaccessible to doctors, researchers, and the public, and are likely to remain that way for years to come. Doctors, researchers, and the public. Can the public see? No, those idiots. We don't trust them. We're not going to tell them anything. What about researchers? It would really help with the research. No, they come to their own conclusions. In my files with their dirty little hands. What if they've had a jam sandwich? All right. What about doctors? Doctors? I don't trust those guys in a white coat, stethoscope. Pooey. This is morally indefensible for all trials, but especially for those involving major health interventions. It's indefensible morally. All right, we'll do it immorally then. Oh, sorry, I didn't realise you were willing to behave it. Sorry, carry on. Especially as it involved major public health interventions. I think that a lot of scepticism around vaccines came from people that were uncertain about the unprecedented scale of what was happening. I remember rather fondly the enthusiasm of the beginning of the pandemic, where in spite of our shared fear, there was at least a sense of collective duty that we all had to obey government edicts because life was at stake. The life of people we didn't know, strangers, loved ones, whoever. That life is important. And above all else, we're here to protect one another and love one another. I'm laughing because elsewhere in society, you don't see those values playing out. But I, for one, was optimistic to see that happen. As things went on and the medical solutions began to present themselves, it was interesting to see how it was conveyed through the media and what kind of information was verboten, what kind of things you couldn't talk about. Now, down the line, the narrative has altered. Of course, the global circumstances have shifted, interestingly. And also, there are things that you couldn't talk about that you now can talk about. Natural immunity, Wuhan lab leak theory, all things that once upon a yesterday were regarded entirely as the domain of the crackpot, tinfoil hat-wearing nutters, right? But now, the narrative is changing. So when you have a situation where the British Medical Journal are saying that these are morally indefensible actions, the way these trials have been handled, how do you now regard the attitudes of the sceptical or people that were anti-vax? And by anti-vax, just to be clear, I don't mean people that are anti-vaccines. Oh no, that's not what anti-vax means. People that were skeptical about mandates, because many people that are themselves vaccinated were circumspect about the application of mandates and the negative impact that would have, often on communities that are already poor or disadvantaged in some other ways, or indeed people from any background that just believe in bodily autonomy. So it's interesting to hear the British Medical Journal respond to this information in this way. These are not my opinions. This is me reading from the British Medical Journal and applying that information to a narrative we've all been living within to one degree or another for the last couple of years. I should point out, of course, that the British government were holding parties during most of that time, so not everyone was living within those restrictions. Among regulators, the US Food and Drug Administration is believed to receive the most raw data, but does not proactively release them. Why do we even need an adverb, proactively release them? You don't have to proactively release them. Just release them. People can read the information for themselves. Who? Well, I don't know, the public? Researchers? No. Doctors? The FDA is producing data only for Pfizer's vaccine. Other manufacturers' data cannot be requested. Why? Just can't? Industry, which holds the raw data, is not legally required to honour requests for access from independent researchers. Sometimes people say, Russell, you're not making enough suggestions for how to change reality. Well, watch the videos more carefully, because I'm always making suggestions, and here's another one. That shouldn't be allowed. Regulate that right now. You do have to. As well as access to underlying data, transparent decision-making is essential. For those of you watching this, and I don't mean you, our beloved 5.3 million, who I treasure and cherish and want to help shine, I mean people that watch this stuff deliberately with an antagonistic agenda, particularly and specifically to box this off as anti-vax. That's anti-vax. He's a conspiracy theorist. Here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying you shouldn't take the vaccine. I don't mind. I'm not saying the vaccines don't work. I don't know. What I'm saying is there's clear evidence that there's a lack of transparency that the British Medical Journal says is immoral. And that leads to at least skepticism, sometimes cynicism, possibly hesitancy, sometimes in a climate where we know how Big Pharma have behaved in the past, downright doubt and resistance. Can you see why that might be happening under these circumstances. Wouldn't it be nice to hear, hey, listen, look, I know you're worried about this stuff. Here's all the data. There's all the data. Check it out. Read it for yourself. We're so confident in this product. We're so confident in this situation and our decisions that you can just read what you want and then you can decide based on, what's wrong with that? Do you want to buy a car? Can I have a look at it? No. What? Why are you a conspiracy theorist? No, just like look at the car before I buy it. You can't look at that car. What are you? A pervert? A right-wing conspiracy theorist? No, I just want to look at the car, have a look round it, see if it works and that. No, you can't. It's private. You can have a look in 75 years. Yeah, but by then, 75 years you can look. Otherwise, you're a conspiracy theorist. What are you? An anti-carer? Are you? Are you an anti-carer? I don't even know what you're trying to say. I'm trying to buy the car. 75 years. I'll see you in 75 years, you bloody conspiracy theorist. Where's your tin hat? Big Pharma is the least trusted industry. At least 3 of the many companies making COVID-19 vaccines have passed criminal and civil settlements costing them billions of dollars. It's only a civil dispute. What about those criminal ones? Oh, yeah, no, there are some criminal ones as well. But still, would you trust us? We'll tell you in 75 years whether you were right to or not. One pleaded guilty to fraud. Did you do fraud? We did do that. Guilty. Other companies have no pre-COVID track record. Have you done anything before? Not really. No, but just what you've been doing. I don't know, just work for my uncle. Now the COVID pandemic has minted many new pharma billionaires and vaccine manufacturers have reported tens of billions in revenue. Can we see the data? Still no. The BMJ supports vaccination policies based on sound evidence. As the global vaccine rollout continues, it cannot be justifiable or in the best interest of patients and the public that we are left to just trust in the system, with the distant hope that the underlying data may become available for independent scrutiny at some point in the future. The same applies to treatments for COVID-19. Transparency is the key to building trust and an important route to answering people's legitimate questions about the efficacy and safety of vaccines and treatments and the clinical and public health policies established for their use. 12 years ago, we called for the immediate release of raw data from clinical trials. We reiterate that call now. Very intelligently, the British Medical Journal are saying this is not something that's specific to the pandemic and the treatments of the pandemic. These are a set of, here's a word, principles. Data must be available when trial results are announced, published, or used to justify regulatory decisions. That seems reasonable. We've made a regulatory decision. What did you base it on? Some data. Can we see that data? No. Why not? Well, it's private. But how can we trust you? We'll tell you in 75 years why you were right to trust us. There is no place for wholesale exemptions from good practice during a pandemic. That's the least time you want it, isn't it? That's like, oh no, there's an unprecedented crisis. Do you know what we should do? Let's shut down the old transparency and all start acting weird and freaky. And if anyone questions us, they're the problem. Yeah, that's a better system, rather than transparency and open discourse as requested by the oldest medical journal in the world. The public has paid for COVID-19 vaccines through vast public funding of research. Right, there's your money for that car. Can I have a look at it? No, 75 years. Well, I've given you the money. No, you should be a bit more trusting. Why don't you trust me? I do trust you. Just could I look at the data as well? Because I'm an adult and everything. No, 75 years. And it's the public that takes on the balance of benefits and harms that accompany vaccination. The public, therefore, has a right and entitlement to those data, as well as to the interrogation of those data by experts. Does that sound to you like reasonable science? Or does that sound to you like conspiracy theory? Pharmaceutical companies are reaping vast profits without adequate independent scrutiny of their scientific claims. Reasonable assertion. The purpose of regulators is not to dance to the tune of rich global corporations and enrich them further. Oh, no, actually, that is the purpose of regulators, because the regulators are often funded by those very pharmaceutical bodies. You can check that out for yourself. It literally is to dance to their tune. It shouldn't be, but it is. It is to protect the health of the populations. Oh yeah, no, I remember now. We need complete data transparency for all studies. We need it in the public interest, and we need it now. So there you go. There's another idea that could be put forward. How about complete transparency? Oh no, you wouldn't understand that. Not you. The public, you are the public. I am the public. That's who we are. You're the public. They won't understand. They're stupid. And then if you sort of spend time doing your own research, looking stuff up on the internet, did you do your own research? Oh, you little dummy, you idiot, you conspiracy theory. Well, I'd happily look at their research, but I'm not allowed to, because I'll be dead by then. In November 2021, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, should have been a baller, wish I'd been a bit taller, wish I'd worked for Pfizer, don't tell no lies, said people who spread misinformation on COVID-19 vaccine were criminals. Well, I'll tell you who are criminals. Many of the pharmaceutical companies that made the vaccines. The irony, the literal irony. Well, what I would suggest is that we have transparency around matters of public health. In fact, I'm not suggesting it. I'm agreeing with the British Medical Journal. They're suggesting it. I'm agreeing with it. And doesn't that show that there could be the healthy and vital use of expert opinion in creating a fairer, more democratic, more transparent society that all of us could participate in together without leaning into the easy, lazy condemnation of marginalised groups or individuals that for their own reason have selected to be sceptical about a medical product which the British Medical Journal has said has been unethically handled. But that's just what I think. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Tell us what questions remain unanswered. Tell us what you think about censorship more broadly. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one or this one. And if you want to come and see me live, come see me. Plymouth, Bristol, Carlisle, Stockton-on-Tees, beautiful British places. I want to see you there. It's a fantastic show. Sign up to my mailing list, but more importantly than any of this stuff, stay free.